All right, guys, so I pulled the tire off of here because I want to show y'all something. A lot of people that own dualies already know this, but some people don't. Okay, so the 90 model dualies had very little room between the rims. So you had to buy exact size tire that fitted. Now this one calls for a 215, 70, 16, I believe it is. And these guys were running 285, 75, 16s. Which if you see right here, the sidewalls, they were running 20 pounds of PSI in each tire in order so they could squeeze them in because the sidewalls are smashed so tight against each other. When I pulled them off, literally both tires came off at the same time. I had to pick them up and drop them a couple times to get it to finally break loose. All right, and the only reason the tires are saved is because the sidewalls have got this extra rubber here that probably saved it from blowing out. So you need space in between your tires. You got to have a gap, all right? And you got to have a gap, not only space where they don't touch, but a gap that's big enough to compensate when you're on a load and it reaches the bottom, the tires squish out, and you'll see they'll bulge out on the sidewalls. They can't touch. If they touch each other, they rub, they create heat, and you'll have a sidewall blowout. If you're carrying a load and you're doing high speed, you're lucky if you don't lose control of it. So it's a really bad idea. Looking into it, I would have to change because all the tires around this thing are 285, 75, 16s. And as you can see, these are brand new tires, as well as the front are brand spanking new tires. I could go down and buy the 215, 70s, but it's $1,100 for all 6 tires because you would have to do all 6 tires. So what I did is I started looking into something and I ran across these guys here. All right, and they make this. And this is a wheel spacer for dualies. They machine it out of one solid chunk of steel. You can feel all the grooves in that as they machined every hole. But the biggest point of this thing is what is called hub-centric. Meaning that the rim actually rides on this, and this rides on the hub right here, and not on the lugs, okay? And them are 2-inch spacers. So what I did was I took 2 tires, I threw one down facing up like this, and then I threw the other one down just like I was mounting it on top of it, letting the sidewalls touch, fully aired up. And I measured the gap between it, and it was a 1-inch gap. So we doubled that. We went with a 2-inch spacer. So hopefully that should give me the space I need for my tires to clear, and I can run all these 6 big brand spanking new tires on this thing. Now, these are expensive. They're not cheap. It was $370 plus shipping to get these to my house. But here's the deal. It was cheaper than buying 6 new tires at $1,161. And now, what I can do now is that whenever I do need tires, I can go from whatever size is on sale, whether it's 215, 225, 235s, and on all the way up to 285s. You know, so now I have a wide variety of tires I can run on this truck instead of just one size, that's it, and have to buy that size no matter what the price is. Now I got a variety, and I like the bigger tires. I really do, especially carrying these loads and some of this with the positive traction rear end and these mud grips are really going to help because some of this stuff we're in, some light dirt now. It'll help pull the loads out, the tractors out, and the equipment out. But anyway, we're going to throw these on. These are rated for 10,000 pounds load. So, I mean, that's way more than this thing will ever carry. Can't beat that at all. But I want to see how well these go on, and then just show y'all this, and if they hold up, how they come out. All right, guys, as you can see, I got the hub off right here to do the wheel, which I got the new wheel cylinder in, and I'm fixing to put the new brakes on. And it was pretty nasty, as you can see these parts. I'm going to stick this in a bucket with the super clean, and I'm gonna clean these parts up real good, all these brake parts, before I go back in there with them. So I'm gonna use this one in the pan with all the parts, and I'm gonna use this aerosol can, emergency brake bracket, and then up in here clean some of this up. I want to get that oil off of there. We do not want that oil on there. That will transfer once it gets hot. I also need to be very careful. Got to be careful. You don't want to get it onto here, and you definitely don't want to get it on inside of this rear end. And you can see almost instantly it starts turning brown.
I don't want to say anything, because if I do, I might say the wrong words. Oh no. So keep my mouth shut and not listen. Afraid I'd lose you if I didn't. Till we find what we're missing and compromise. So I'll keep my shoes on and not
And this stuff is so thick because it had been let go for so long with a leaking wheel cylinder. The brakes, as you can see, is just caked up. They were no more good. They were crystallized. So let me flip this stuff over. But yeah, it was just cake. I scraped a lot of it off the hub already. I mean, off the back plate. And as you can see, the hub, the buildup in it from the leaking. Now that right there, that puddle right there, that's actually rear end oil that's leaked out when I popped the hub loose, and the seal broke it. When the seal broke loose, some of it backflowed out. But that's brake fluid right there. That's all brake dust that's collected up full of brake fluid. All right, let's see what this aerosol can do, and then I'll use the floor dry to clean up the mess.
So keep my mouth shut and not listen. Afraid I lose you if I didn't. Till we find what we're missing and compromise. So I keep my shoes on and not leaving. We're on thin ice, winter season. Till we find a single reason not to say goodbye. Oh, if I said what's on my mind, would you stay with me tonight? If I said what's
Back it over, get the back side. Now, we'll let that sit for a little while. Now, of course, I'm not going to water this down, hose this down. Definitely don't want water in that rear end. So I'm just going to dry wipe it with a rag, clean it up, and then let it dry. Yeah, let me get my rag and wipe this thing down. As you can see, man, it did a number on this stuff. I mean, it cleaned this stuff up. As you can see now the colors of the springs now. Everything is oil and grime free, which is exactly what I wanted. So I rinsed all these off with water until I felt no more soapy feeling to it. Yeah, just let it dry. Then the rag I used to clean this with, I rinsed out thoroughly. Just a damp rag, and come back and wiped down again. Alright guys, so as you can see, that hub is much, much cleaner. And I used the super clean in the can. Now, if you read the directions, it tells you to rinse with water. Now, obviously, I am not going to rinse this hub with water because of my bearings and that in there, and I'm not pulling all that out. So what I did was I had me some rags, and I just wiped thoroughly. Now, I was careful not to get none in here. I'm going to let it dry to the touch. And then to make sure there's no residue, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back with just some rubbing alcohol and clean it all around here, because I don't have no brake cleaner on me. You know, where the brakes will make contact, and make sure there's no residue of any kind on that surface. I am not worried about a residue here once this all dries. I'm not worried about a residue there, just on this surface here. All new brakes on. If you ain't never done brakes before, and that on a Chevrolet, especially these older model Chevrolets with the brake shoes, all I used was a regular flathead screwdriver to load all my springs. And after practice and that, you get the hang of it. You know how to, like this one right here, to grab it onto that sucker, pull it up right, just right, and pop it in there. Same thing with here. You'll learn how to work the angles in that and twist your springs and flip them and lock them in. But yeah, this is flathead screwdrivers, all I ever used to put all of them on, except for these right here. These right here, I use my needle nose to push them in and then turn them, because you got to twist them to get them to lock in on each side. And you're holding the brake pad in place because you want to lock these in first, and then before you start applying all your springs. The only thing I got to do is, once I get my hub on, is adjust my brakes. Alright guys, so now we're on the passenger side, and as you can see right there, we have a leaking wheel cylinder on this side as well. Pouring down, been leaking for a while. So needless to say, the brakes are crystallized. They're shot. Fully extended. There ain't much pad left on that side. Almost fully extended out. So yeah, man, look, you cannot have oil, grease, brake fluid, any of that stuff on your brake pads. As soon as they heat up, when you apply them, they turn to crystal. Yeah, we're gonna clean it up. It ain't near as thick on this side. You can actually see some of the metal still on this side as it was on the other side. But we're definitely gonna do the super clean on this side as well. Look at that. Look at the brake fluid in that. All right, so yeah, let me pull this apart. This is how it goes on. This is called a between the wheel spacer, if I didn't mention that. So your inside wheel first, then your spacer, and then now the outside wheel will go on, and it should give you that distance you need between the sidewalls. One of the things you want to make sure of is you stagger your hoe so that you can reach your valve stem in the back on the back tire. And there's that hub centric right there. So that way the rim, like I said, is riding on this, not on the studs. All right, guys, so it's on there. One of the things you want to check for, and I'll show you this. You want to make sure you can see, I don't know if y'all can see that camera, you want to make sure that hub comes out and not crushing it. And that way you know you're tight up against the spacer all the way around. So you want to check for that, and now I'm fixing to torque them down. But overall, it's not too bad. It does feel that fender well quite well. Now we got a gap between them, and that gap should be enough to keep it from rubbing.